it's likely that we might see a bit of a change in the way that the Lords does some things in order to facilitate scrutiny of a Foreign Secretary in that House.
How can David Cameron be Foreign Secretary when he isn't an MP?
Yeah, absolutely. So it's worth saying this is very unusual. It's in the modern era, highly unusual for a cabinet level minister to sit in the House of Lords, but it does happen. There is some precedent for this. The last Foreign Secretary to sit in the House of Lords was Lord Carrington. That was back in the late 70s and early 80s. It's worth bearing in mind here that the kind of key principle is that government ministers need to be accountable to Parliament, but obviously that can either be the House of Commons or it can be the House of Lords, and it's going to be the latter that will be the case for David Cameron as Foreign Secretary.
But I suppose to some extent, being Foreign Secretary is a less sort of red on blue political job than if you, I don't know, if you were Chancellor or Education Secretary, taking through lots of bills and reforms and so on. The Foreign Office rarely takes through a sort of a major piece of legislation. But there will be questions for how, you know, bluntly, you know, the MPs and the Commons would like to hold him to account. Am I right in thinking that when this happened with Peter Mandelson, when he came back in, what was it, 2008, 2009, under Gordon Brown, went into the House of Lords as Business Secretary, there were sort of more sort of committee hearings, the Business Select Committee and so on, he had more grillings. They were definitely more public than might have been otherwise.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's likely that we might see a bit of a change in the way that the Lords does some things in order to facilitate scrutiny of a Foreign Secretary in that House. And you're right to draw on the example, the kind of precedent set by Peter Mandelson back in the early 2000s. So what usually happens is when you have a Secretary of State in the Commons, they will have a kind of rota according to which they will occasionally come and have to answer questions about the work of their department. That system doesn't really exist in the same way in the House of Lords. But when Peter Mandelson was a cabinet minister and did sit in the House of Lords in the early 2000s, to procedure, which basically meant that the House of Lords did have the regular opportunity to directly question that Secretary of State. So it's possible that we might see something like that happen again. But you're also right to highlight the importance of select committees. So David Cameron will be able to give evidence before relevant Lords select committees, but could also go and give evidence before relevant Commons committees, and I would expect would be keen to go and do that. So there will be sort of other opportunities for scrutiny. It will just look a little bit different to what we are used to with foreign secretaries in the modern era.